We are back with former President Donald Trump for the entire hour, and here is more of my interview from Mar-a-Lago. The economy, I can't even say it strongly enough, is in complete shambles. We have 60% of our country now living paycheck to paycheck. CBS News now says 25% of people in our great country are what they call food insecure. Food that can't get bare necessities. Recession, record. Inflation, record. Our debt, our deficits. You know, why has this happened? How would you fix it? And would you have supported the bailout of Silicon Valley Bank?
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
A lot of questions you're asking me.
I am.
I wouldn't have supported the bailout. The bank would have to get along by itself, and maybe they could have. What happened with the bank is interest rates went too high. And, you know, I had my own situation with Powell, and I beat the hell out of him. I was not a big fan of Powell. He was recommended by some people. I didn't like him. He's too interest rate happy. What you do is you get the oil prices down. That's bigger than interest rates, the only thing. And what happened is we took an oil, and now we take an interest rates. Those banks failed because the interest rates were too high. They stupidly bought long-term treasuries.
10-year treasuries.
Well, they bought long-term, longer than that even. And they bought long-term, and those treasuries got crushed because Powell keeps raising interest rates. But that's up to Biden. He's going to have to worry about that himself. You know, in theory.
How would you fix it?
Well, I would have done a big number on Powell like it did. I did a very big number. In fact, he wasn't budging.
You wouldn't have given him energy.
He eventually cut him so much that it almost caused a problem. People said, how come he's cut him? He cut him almost a point immediately because he thought I was going to fire him, okay? Which some people said I had the right to do. Other people said you don't. You know, when you put them there, rightfully, they have to have some protection, et cetera, from a president.
But how much of this is...
But I thought he was hurting the economy.
You left this country for the first time in 75 years. We were energy independent.
Right.
A net exporter of energy. Right. Okay.
We were going to be dominant.
Okay. And Europe right now could have used American energy. This winter they could have used it.
Right?
So, but now Joe has cut back dramatically on domestic production of energy. Now we're importing...
Not believable.
We're importing from Venezuela.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia last year, their big oil company, made the most money they've ever made in history.
That's right.
I think it was over $167 billion. How much of that, because doesn't energy impact trucking, it impacts the price of goods in every store that we go to?
So when Biden came in, the first thing he did was end the Keystone pipeline that I got approved. Okay, it was all approved.
Well, no, he also gave Putin a waiver on the Nord Stream 2.
Okay, so Putin said, because everyone said, oh, I'm so nice to Putin. Putin said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as an enemy. He told me that. I got along very well with Putin. By the way, I'd be able to work that out. It would have never happened in a million years, and even the Democrats admit that. But if this thing isn't solved by the time we have the election, which is possible it won't be, and there's also possible we'll be in World War III with these idiots that are doing what they're doing. You could end up in a nuclear world war, which will make World War I and World War II look like patty cakes, okay? This unbelievable, because we have people that don't know what they're doing. But if it's not solved, I will have it solved in 24 hours with Zelensky and with Putin. And there's a very easy negotiation to take place, but I don't want to tell you what it is because then I can't use that negotiation. It'll never work. But there's a very easy negotiation to take place. I will have it solved within one day, a peace between them. Now, that's a year and a half. That's a long time. I can't imagine something not happening. The key with that is the war has to stop now because Ukraine is being obliterated. You know, whether
there'll be nothing left.
Well, I looked at pictures of cities that are literally decimated. It's like complete demolition. I was in the construction business. You would demolish a building and it looked like hundreds of these demolition sites. There wasn't a building standing. And these are cities for Ukraine. They were big cities, very big cities. Now, he hasn't really, in Kiev, he hasn't really set the missiles in, but at some point he'll do that one too. There's nothing standing. The other thing is many more people are dead and horribly injured than they're reporting. You know, when you see missiles hitting 15 buildings and 15 buildings falling to the ground, and they're big buildings, there are a lot of people in those buildings, and then they say one person was injured. These are phony reports. Many, many people are being killed that you don't know, but you'll see that later on.
So you'd prefer, if you were president, you think you would have a negotiated settlement, and
Within 24 hours.
and we wouldn't no longer be ponying up all the money that, by the way, Western Europe is not doing their fair share.
What's unfair, and you and I have had this conversation, is that we're up to almost $150 billion, and Europe's at $24 billion. Now, it's the same thing with NATO. Don't forget, I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. My first meeting at NATO, you know, I was just there, never did this before. I'm sitting with all these presidents and prime ministers, nice guys, 28 countries, and I'm looking at the charts. I say, could I see who's delinquent, because they're supposed to pay? And they say, what do you mean by delinquent? They said, that's a real estate term. When you don't pay your rent, you're delinquent. Could I please see who has not paid? And of the 28 countries, 20 were not paid. They weren't paying. And I said, you have to pay. And if you don't pay, I'm not going to protect you. And the head of a very important country stood up and said, who was delinquent, said, could I ask you, if we don't, what you're saying, if Russia attacks us and we aren't paid up, you're not going to protect us? I said, that's exactly what I mean.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.